welcome to game number 1 of this, the Penetrate Clan Wars. I am Ab Summer, and today I am joined by the wonderful Highland Wolf, who will be co-commentating.
Hello.
We are
I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be 3 epic games coming at us. Let's start off with Miramar on the first game here at Abston. I tell you what, is now week 8, I believe we're starting now on these Penetrate Clan Wars. I've been casting these guys for a number of weeks, but not seen in the last 2. So it's going to be interesting to see how they've improved between this gap.
Absolutely, and this is my first of Penetrate Clan Wars, so I really don't know what to expect this time round.
It's okay, I'll be here to hold your hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, but as I say, it will be starting off here on Miramar, so it's going to be interesting to see which teams control the high ground and low ground, because with Miramar, the high ground and low ground are what determines these team fights in this map here, all about locations like Picardo Hill that we often talk about, for example, in the centre of that. So these teams here finishing. I'll join the lobby, and then we will be over onto the game here for us. So I think what we want to see here is definitely moving in the teams like obviously AMZ Lions and SAS, who are at the top of the leaderboard, be continuing to on their strength, their streak here, and continuing to dominate these games. And I think AMZ Alliance, one of these teams here as well, they have been super strong over the last couple of weeks. However, they have started to lose their lead, but looking forward to some really impactful games for them tonight once again.
Absolutely, and as always with PUBG, anything is possible. So tonight we might see one of the teams that perhaps don't normally do as well and are not normally in the top of the leaderboard make a surprising jump forward and start taking wins.
Right, exactly. We can't count teams, obviously, like Pen Gunners, down in 9th position right now, only with 150 points. Yes, they've still got a catch up to 124 points here, which isn't going to feasibly happen unless they have an absolute miracle couple weekends coming to the final weeks. But you never know, that still could upset, of course, the top of the leaderboard. If these bottom teams start to results, that's really switch up this leaderboard.
100%. And as always with Miramar, you have the high ground, you have, the sky rises, you have these locations whereby teams can really hold that compound well. And depending on where the zone goes, we might see some really big surprises tonight.
Yeah, and often, we start to see some really mean zones. At least kind of one a night here, so expect it once again. But if we get on Miramar starting off, we'll just have to see. Maybe we get a bit lucky, or maybe we'll have to wait down the line towards our future games later on tonight. But the rest of these teams, we'll go through quickly the list of teams. So we're going to start with Venga Boys and Lunatic, going to be the non-league teams tonight. Moving down, we've got the league teams here, which are Salty Potatoes, DD UK, God's Degrees Tartarus, ZPX Elite, AMZ Lines, RPG Rat Pack, RPG The OGs, Tralga, SAS, Team Incognito, the L's 2, the L's 1, Team Climb, RAF Blue, Task Force, Pen Gunners, and Pen Game Over are 2 home teams here.
Absolutely, and we'll be wishing them the best of luck as the game now starts. And as we just get started, what do you think these teams are really going to have to do to make a dent in the leaderboard?
I think obviously we have a massive gap here, talking about 52 points, of course, between SAS and AMZ Lions, second and first place respectively here, Abs, and even down there, another 50-point gap to third. So we're going to have to not only see wins come out from these teams in high score positions, but also a boatload of kills from these teams, especially like the RAF Blue. And Incognito and even the likes of SES who need to make close that gap between AMZ lines still dominantly in first position.
100%, and the map is starting in around 18 seconds now, so we will soon find out where the flight path is going to take us, and from there we will see where the teams start jumping. So some may be going for the hot drops, some may be going for the quiet locations and just kind of make their way in gradually, but who knows.
Right, and we saw last week, for example, Game Over, a team who has historically had bad Miramar weeks, take a slightly more relaxed approach towards the southwest of El Pozo. But this playing path does look pretty interesting, very generous for these teams as we go from Porto Paísio all the way up to El Pozo towards the end. And I suspect the teams may start to drop down towards the southerly area of Miramar to start us off.
You know, I think you're right, and especially with the coastal lines, if you have teams on either side of that with two bridges in play, that is where the teams may try and start gatekeeping, depending on where the zone ends up.
Right, and also allows time for these teams in space for these teams to rotate around, use the roads and the edge of Miramar to make it into zone. As we talk about that South Island there, you can rotate from Porto Paísio down through the South Island, up Beldaman into the centre of the map from there. And also another massive location here is going to be key for these teams is obviously Picado Hill around San Martin area as well. A massive high ground advantage and gives you that vision that you're needing around Picado, around San Martin, around Hacienda for these teams rotating into these compounds.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And the vantage points are always going to be beneficial, especially on Miramar, with it being such a large map. So by staying up there, you have the ridge lines to hide behind. So that strategically, that may be a really good vantage point for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, we do see a standard drop down towards the high north area for Penn Game Over, but interestingly down in Los Leones looks a little bit closer for comfy, even between Gods and Greece and Elves here. It will be the side of Elves 1, not Elves 2, around the southern area. Looks like we could see a fight perhaps break out there for luck.
Absolutely, and we are starting off with Penn Menace at the moment, going up against Task Force led by Andrex, and we have a knock already from them.
Yeah, knocks here going to be starting out as Task Force find another onto Penn and make that confirmed killers. That will be one going down in Porto Paísio.
Yep, that is Penn Tabernac that has just been taken down by Task Andrex of Task Force.
Yeah, and that will make it obviously a now 3-3 here for the side of Task Force, who only started with 3 members here, so they're going to be really comfortable. But an interesting split here from Penn Gunners. They're going around this kind of semicircle split, whereas Task Force have gone to choose that 1-2 split instead.
Absolutely, and we're now looking at Penn Menace just pushing in to meet up with the other members of the team there. And we still have the 2-1 split from the Task Force. So if we get some interesting rotations here, it could be a very interesting fight, I think.
Yeah, especially if Andrex gets knocked here, there's going to be no support for him to be revived. It's going to be versus Fish, so up this side, will you find it?
You know what, I really don't know at the moment with Task Marina just getting the knock on Penn Menace there. And Penn Vish has also been taken down by Task Andrex and is killed there.
Yeah, it does look like a dominant first fight here for Task Force. They up themselves now to 3 kills, and I think Murdoch just needs to think about retreating here, because with only 1 player alive, you now need to think about trying to get these game points on board, because no way are you going to be able to take down this dominant Task Force team 3 versus 1.
Absolutely, and from personal experience, a lot of teams they don't like the idea of retreating. They think it's a cowardly move to make. But when you're thinking of a competitive play, you know, having the courage to admit that maybe you're taking on too much and moving away can be the best thing for a team.
Right, and talking about split drops here as well, down in the south end again, it does look like RAF Blue have a very interesting drop. We've got Torek there towards the north, and down the rest of their teammates to the very south edge of the coastal line, and that could be disadvantageous for them here. Because if Torek gets knocked, they're going to be down 3 members, and we've also Sons of Odin here, or should I say Drauga here, sorry, my apologies, up to the north of them. That could disadvantage them in a potential fight.
Absolutely. And if we have a quick look of that Sons of Odin team Droga, they are in a vehicle at the moment, so they may be trying to get an alternative vantage point, or they may be trying to retreat. We just don't know.
Yeah, I would expect them to make this route round the road, and this is where we start seeing these quick rotations from the side of RAF Blue. They're going to need to operate here because with Badojas, they're getting that knock-up onto Torek. Now comes the question of, are they too split to try and make any plays between either team?
100%. And it looks as though RAF Blue jumped into a Morado and made a slight getaway with Team 16 Sons of Odin Droga now on foot.
Yeah, down, around, and like really ever, they're also a little bit of action, and not usually what we get to see here, Abs, is it will look like the side of the Brooks and ATS, it looks like a team that we don't have in my slot there, so apologies if we don't quite know the name, but it will look like a lack of Nostra with the LN tag there, I would have to guess, down in that area, taking a knock-up onto Wenger Boys, one of our non-league teams, but looking at the rest of the map here in his zone, as we're now 6 minutes in, how's this zone looking through his teams?
I think at the moment we still have a zone fairly centre in the entire map, with areas like the coastal regions of Valdemar and Puerto Paraiso being cut off slightly. So these teams will now need to start making a move to the northerly direction of this map to get into zone. A lot of the teams are already in that zone, so it may be a case of them just trying to gatekeep at the moment and letting the blue zone do enough damage so they can just slide in and get those knocks there without having to do too much.
Yeah, we'll see another knock-up in favour of Incognito, but continuing about this zone here, Abs, and we see actually an interesting drop onto RPG Rat Pack and Picardo, and I'm surprised that none of these teams are taking control of Picardo and San Martin Hill here, especially the likes of Rat Pack, because with all these teams in the south side, because of the plane path being in favour of that area, they're going to expect it, Rat Pack is going to have to fight off a lot of these teams moving up into this zone. Taking control of that high ground would be such an advantage for them, for seeing these teams making their way up in that direction.
100%, and what we have just caught on screen at the moment is team number 4, the Wenger Boys, being taken out. But as you mentioned earlier, they are not one of the league teams, so this won't make a huge difference to the leaderboard as such. But I think maybe it's too early on for the teams to start taking locations, especially when the zone is so big and it can change pretty much in any direction at last minute. So they may just be trying to get more of a rough idea as to what the game's going to provide them before they start taking compounds.
But still obviously getting loose up here, getting the equipment that they need on board to their team, and we did obviously see a little bit of skirmish here. We are obviously down to 17 teams here, a little bit less than where we started, but not seeing so much action. Of course, we still have Penguins alive here, but down in the south side, it will look like the side of Incognito going to push down onto RAF Blue.
Absolutely, and Raphael has just been taken down, as well as Coyote Thorlord from Team 18, with Vidma just getting the revive now.
Yeah, and moving around, I think back to Lost Leon is also Elf going to make a rotation here. As it's interesting how this plays out because the Greta one-person split here, but it's still making work of it.
100%, and we do see the Elf team number 20 taking on 11, which is Gods of Greece, as you just mentioned. So Elf are inside at the moment with a slight 2-1 split. One team member is out the front, taking on Team 11, trying to get the rotation at the moment on the left side.
Yeah, Klein there with the snipe on the edge of Gods of Greece there on the flank side. That's 2-1-1 split here, and I think this is an interesting split, of course, a very strong split for Elf here. They have the number on the Gods of Greece here, who have just made that vehicle reroute away from Los Leones. I expect them to try and make their way north, perhaps into the eyes of Murdoch as they try reposition to a different area in this, and perhaps La Bendita is still open.
100%. And that split that they've got going at the moment, they can afford to do that because of how many buildings there are around, by using that as cover, and it is a lot of open territory, so they're not having to do much manoeuvring in terms of moving.
Yeah, exactly. The high ground once again being such an advantage here for these teams in Mirror. But we do see teams starting to make their way closer into the game here and into the centre of this circle, with the side of will be the UK making their slight move through the rest of Salty Potatoes closer towards Rat Pack, and this is where I wanted Rat Pack to make that move onto the hill, because they would have a better shot at taking down the UK moving in here, and it'd have much more vision about their rotations and where the UK are looking to move inside this zone.
Absolutely, and with Rat Pack up in that direction at the moment, holding their ground whilst Death Defying start to make that move up. And they are still in the zone, so logically they could just hold this compound for the majority of the game.
They could, but also comes to that disadvantage because as teams may look to control Picardo being on the edge of the hill on such an impactful area that is in the centre of this zone, they could find themselves running into multiple teams at once if we see all of these teams waiting for the zone when it finally does move.
100%, and that is where the early interactions in the game come into play. If they have looted up and they have the equipment they need to make a forceful impact, and things like smoke grenades and possibly flash grenades might come into play here as well.
Yeah, all about the vision game in this first matchup, but it doesn't look like ZPX are going to have a little bit of action here. I think they have spotted Team Clown on top of the hill, and Fallen, making that team aware, and their teammates aware of them, but nothing going to go out just yet. We will have to wait through a zone. These teams are still pretty passive. Gods of Greece are moving on to Task Force down over in Los Leones.
Absolutely, and if we just move down there now briefly, we are looking at Gods of Greece Achilles at the moment, just making a rotation round to the right hand side to take on Task Force. Task Force at the moment seem to be quite compacted, quite together, so they may try and make a push.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Gods of Greece didn't be more in that rotation than Task Force. They were so close to Gods of Greece during that moment, during the time that zone was moving in, and with Task making that early rotation in, they're now able to gatekeep Gods of Greece away, and we were like Incognito now making a little push of themselves.
Absolutely, and if we now just jump over to them, but we'll briefly just stay with Gods of Greece at the moment, as Achilles is starting to shoot at Task Marina, who is just driving away in a buggy and has stopped to get a little bit of cover on those hills, which is where they will really come into play on this game. But as you said, let's just have a quick look at Team 18, Team Incognito, with one player left, and see what they're up to.
Yeah, Incognito, they're going to have to be careful here, especially with one player. We talked about how Penn Murdoch also has to be careful in these solo players, and I think as his zone has obviously shifted further towards the north, as we kind of expected here and predicted at, now comes the likes of where RPG, Vapak should have controlled Picardo Hill, because there's going to be so many teams rotating their way, and they're actually opting to go for that airdrop. I think they've given up a major advantage here, but AMZ have now decided to take it up just on the north of the hill.
Island, how do you think this changes the strategy of gameplay when players suddenly drop from, say, 3 or 4 members to just the one?
I think it definitely changes it up in terms of teams have to be more passive, they have to be more aware of their rotations, because you don't have that player that you can just send in as a scout into a compound, right, and see where these enemy members are. You have to be much more cautious in playing it on the edges zone. Is what we want to see from these single players, just being aware that they can't be taking the centre of the map areas because they don't have the manpower to fend off these teams.
I totally agree, and I think there is an aspect of it that at the same time, because there is just one of them, they may be more willing to take that riskier move that with a team you might second guess.
Yeah, and AMZ also making this rotation closer to the side of what we'll just call Black for now, or LN. It does look like AMZ, the leaders, might be having a fight of their own.
Yep, we are just following Matas and Rebel at the moment. We're with Rebel as they push through this building at the moment with Team 3 just at 265 and gets a knock there on ATS Heart.
Yeah, that one knock of Evan Brooks is down inside the building here. It does look like Rebel are going to make a little bit of a dash outside the window, try to reposition here. Is also another who can't quite find it, and now with Hart knocked down, and just the rest of LN, whatever they're called, out of this first game here, AMZ take themselves 3 kills.
Absolutely, and AMZ did exactly what they needed to do. They pushed when they had that opportunity. They didn't second guess, they didn't rethink, they just went for it, and at the end of the day they came out successful.
Yeah, it's that aggression that gives them that advantage. They had the man advantage. They went into to make sure they could take that fight versus 3 members. Smart decision. Also had the rest of their squad there just coming in for backup as well. But a little bit far back in case it all went wrong instead. So AMZ playing very cautious but very smart game early on in this first match.
100%, and I think that is where the competitive nature of scrims comes into it. You get that adrenaline, you get that desire and want for a win, and then at the end of the day, if that gets you the results you need, go for it.
Yeah, definitely have to agree here, but also down the side, then fight up if you take back control of Picardo, but El going to be moving up to Picardo here. We see the side of also Salty Potatoes going to make their way up towards Picardo. He'll be gatekeeped right now in the edge, and all these teams split apart. And I tell you what, the most advantageous team here in this game so far is that's 10 game over, because they're sat on the side of the hill. They're going to have vision of any team moving through Monster Areas Road closer through the centre of this zone.
Absolutely, and looking at Team 25, which is Pen Game Over at the moment with Pen Tarzan, by being so high, they have that brilliant vantage point, but at the same time, they've got those small ridges for them to take cover if they need to. So this could be a really strategic spot for them to stay as long as they can.
Yeah, I think this is a very passive game as well coming out here. What do you make of also this road being in the centre? How will this affect these teams?
I think by having it so centre, you could have a few teams send a scout down the road to see who is so high up, and then getting a rough idea and start marking the territory to know where you have to be more observant, shall we say, than you normally would. And with still so many high grounds still in play, it could be a very strategic match as opposed to a very kind of full-on and action-packed one.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree here. But this third phase zone is being pretty brutal to these players out, because that's just shifted over to the east side in favour of those over in half the end. And all these teams in the south and down onto Picardo Hill scrap that idea out, because they're going to have to make their move up north.
100%, and we see teams like Decoy, RP the OG, who are there. We have Pen Gunners, we have ZPX Elites over there as well as a task force. And from what we've seen in Game 1, they seem to be quite forceful teams in their self. That they're not scared of pushing if they need to. And they're all going for the win, regardless of what the leaderboard says at the moment. These teams want to make a dent in there, regardless of whether they have the chance to get 100 points in Game 1 or not. So, you know, it's all to play for. It really, really is.
Yeah, and definitely the impact that these lower teams can make on these higher teams who may not have such a great game then fall down and lose their lead just in 1 week. But we see now these forced rotations because of that hard shift in the third phase zone with AMZ with Game Over also making their way over SAS.
Absolutely. And with Penn Game Over at the moment, they have just spotted Team 17, who is SAS. And they're two very good teams, and they're well known for scrims as well. So if these teams were taken out, I'm not going to say an early stage, but quite early in itself, then this could be a really big shock for us.
Yeah, and especially considering an interesting split here, especially from SAS, but Tasker on that kill feed going to take down Fallen. SAS, so they have this interesting 2-1 split with Psycho now moving in aggressively over Balor, and I think they might have found Balor out of position.
100%. And if we just switch to the bird's eye view for a moment so we can see these grenades being thrown in, we have Team 12 ZPX Elite up high at the moment trying to get that vantage point, and with a beautiful grenade being thrown in, which we have amazingly caught on screen. It was beautifully thrown, went right through that window and got a knock on Ant-Man there.
Yeah, it is just that type of play that we're looking to see on these teams, and also it doesn't look like Taskforce there. They make that move in and continuing with Marina on this beautiful grenade over on Town to try and finish him off, and yes, say will.
And that was a beautifully thrown grenade by Marina and gets it dead on to Ant-Man, taking it down. And maybe, unfortunately for Ant-Man, the other two members of ZPX chose to retreat slightly. So although unfortunately they've lost him, it was logical for them because they can continue.
Right, exactly, that's what it all is about. And we've seen the Western side, though, this cluster of teams, and this is where the action's going to be, Abs.
100%. And now with all the teams now into the zone, we do have team number 9 Salty Potatoes inside the red zone at the moment, and as I'm sure you can appreciate, the red zone isn't there to make friends.
No, the red zone isn't there to make friends. It's there to delete its enemies. But I don't think Salty Potatoes will have to worry too much about the red zone. They have a clear shot if they can rotate either left or right. Just have to be wary that RPG Rat Pack are straight ahead of them.
100%. And with these teams really in the centre of the next zone so far, they will want to gatekeep. So Salty Potatoes could be putting themselves in an unfortunate position by trying to move in that direction.
Right, and talking about this zone here as it will shift, Wesley's going to shift down over to Happy End and San Martin, and now this is where the side of Rat Pack will now have their advantage on the high ground, overlooking Happy End and all these teams across the roadside making their rotations in.
Absolutely, and if any of those teams try to make their way across that road, they are so open that it will just be begging to be shot at. And now we do see team number 9 Salty Potatoes move in to go up against team 14, the Rat Pack, and shots are being fired.
Yeah, they need to control this area, but can they find these kills onto Rat Pack? Unfortunately, have lost a second here, and that will cost them immediately with Venom and Daddy down. Brocazer making that move closer in, and perhaps they can try and find an angle with the high ground over Paul Baz and Mad CD.
Absolutely, and we now see Legolas just trying to rotate around that mountain to go up against SF Abstract at the moment, and is now being joined by the other member of the Rat Pack, and we have Paul Baz out by the edge, just overlooking the roadside that we just mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah, and with this split on these teams here will allow them to cover more ground as these enemies will make a move surely for this hillside, as it is the most advantageous spot of the game in this first match here, but they do need to make it up the hill first to begin with, and though they have the low ground advantage, they can peek a little bit further and get more clear shots onto the side of Solid Potatoes. Solid Potatoes also have the advantage in terms of their throwables, in terms of their smoke grenades, their main grenades, because they can throw them down onto the enemies of the Rat Pack.
100%, and this will now really tell who looted well to start off with, because with guns like M4s, they are hard, they can deal a lot of damage. But I know it's not really mentioned a lot, but things like SMGs, they can be quite good to play with because of the fast rate of fire.
Yeah, we can always just take down Paul Baz here as well, and that will be
wow.
just down out the game. Immediate decisiveness says it will just be the rest of the side of Rat Pack also falling there as well after so much work so quickly from Salted Potatoes.
I cannot believe that at all. Abstract just got 2 kills in succession of the Rat Pack, and now they're being fired upon by Team Clown. It is just never ending, but at the same time, like I said earlier on today, we could be seeing some surprises, and I really think that was a big surprise.
Yeah, definitely has to agree with you there, and I think with Team Clan here moving in as well, they now have this position on the other side of the mountain, still in zone, and this is going to close them once again. Now, see these teams forced to rotate to the mountainside, because it's all about the high ground.
And now we see smokes coming in. This is going to be the strategic side of teams coming in now, using the smokes to their advantage, whether as a decoy, a distraction, or just a chance for them to move. And with being so high up, they really need that.
Yeah, definitely. It will be a very interesting rotation from Pen Game Over there as well, making their way just on the edge of that mountainside. Same way the Solid Potatoes tried to move in over that pack, but surely they will be wiser Solid Potatoes to be backdoored by their own strategy.
And looking at Pen Game Over at the moment, they seem to be rotating to the right-hand side, with Salted Potatoes on the left and AMS just getting a knock on the left-hand side there of SAS. So another 2 strong teams going arms in arms against each other, trying to take one of them out.
Right, exactly. And I'm interested here between Pen Gunners as they make their move onto this mountainside, because whichever team makes this fight and wins this fight here, AMS will control the most advantageous spot of this first game. But down in the low ground as well, SAS have a lot of work to do, because they need to try fight a way through these entire side of, well, Happy Ending, then up this hill.
And Salted Potatoes have just got another knock on Pen Game Over. Pen Carbon has been taken down by Broke Haze.
Yeah, look at the positioning as well from Bejajas there. Enforcing out rotations and cons, making them split now. Pen Game Over, they can't focus just on one team because they've got another enemy moving behind them.
100%, and we are seeing Team Incognito moving in now to the upper ground. We've just seen Pen Cons drive in to try and provide some support in order for Pen Carbon to be revived, which they have managed to do. And we now see SAS Omen just getting a knock on the task force.
I'm not surprised that SAS consistently getting these knocks despite having realistically the hardest way into these final couple of zones. Continuing on to Matters here, the reigning champion so far these first couple of weeks in this league here. Is AMZ struggling?
Do you know what? Possibly. I think there is a sense of psychology in this, whereby when teams do so well, they kind of get this sort of expectation to do well continuously. And that is where things might start to slip, whereby, you know, the way the team plays together, the strategy, and things like that. So maybe this consistent kind of high ranking is going to be a disadvantage to them.
Yeah, but AMZ and SES fall down though, both to ZPX and Rebel in Describe, and this is where the split from AMZ comes in handy, but it still looks like the play zone going to finish off these players, and AMZ continuing on to Kata there, and only Nash going to be alive in this final game for ZPX, and Team Clan also making interesting rotations. Cons really fast split with Game Over here.
And looking where the zone's left us, we do see a ZPX Nash having to make his way through teams 13, which is AMZ Lions. We've got Team 18, which is Team Incognito. We've got Team 9, which is Salty Potatoes. And we've got 23, the Task Force. Nash has got to make the way through all of them to get to the next zone. So this is where the strategy is going to come in.
Yeah, Team Clan control this zone, the only team inside, and also the only one controlling that whole building, but Address makes it across the road, so sneaky here. But I think weirdly now spotted it, Claus and Mazzy make their rotation out. Hendrix has the low ground advantage, can peek them out in the smokes, also coming out from their teammates. Marina going to be falling down from the edge, maybe. Now White does get knocked up by Air. And
I think this might be where the high ground plays a disadvantage because you can always hide under those ridges and within those kind of mountains. But we've just seen Task White taken down by Am's Describe there. And Task Andrex is not leaving Task Marina, and Task Marina gets taken out by Am's Describe. So that is a task force out of game 1.
But look, it's Soda Potatoes that makes this aggressive rotation in, but doesn't pay off. His Astrex falls down, only Brocade. He's alive, and the sole player behind the building. Can he try find a couple smokes inside? Perhaps they can, but inside of his building, still Team Clown control it. In cons, also the sole survivor for him is 2-on-1-on-1 fight.
Absolutely, and with Team Clown, Team 21 inside that building at the moment, if they can hold it well, they are in zone. They can kind of relax a little bit and just let the outside team start taking each other out. And we just see a brilliant grenade from Team Clown take out Brokehaze.
Yeah, unfortunately down in 4th position there. 4 Solid Potatoes in the middle of a soul leader about that one there. But they just still alive out in these smokes around the crates, and looks like could be the next meal here for Team Clan. But Con's also making an interesting rotation around the edge of that cliffside as we're now on day 7. This blue zone going to chew through these players if they don't make these aggressive rotations in.
Team Incognito has done brilliantly through game 1, especially being on their own. And with Pen Game Over now rotating around the outside as well, leaving Team Clown on the inside. I really do not know how to predict this match because I didn't expect Team Incognito to do as well as they've done. And especially with Pen Game Over only having 1 member left.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see how Badejas has managed to make their way inside and avoid all these teams, which Penn Murdoch, the other sole player early on in this game, couldn't manage to pull off. But Team Clown, they split. They don't really feel like they know which way to go, which way to look, because Cons makes their way in one way, but they just could make their way in the other way if they focus too much attention onto game over there. So, but they just they're also being forced into this zone, but will likely fall down, has to make a move. Come on, the data, and that golden pan over. No, he tries reloading. Mistake from the Dangerous, and Cloud wipes him off. Con's the only other player alive, but still behind that rock, refusing to come into the open.
100%, and that could have been a really great state of play. And Pencons gets a knock on Team Clown.
He gets one on, but Claus has to make that rotation in. Come on, Cons, you've got to come down that mountain.
He needs to push.
Try to take control of him. It's a one-on-one. They have to explain that Cloud's making this rotation round to try revive their teammate, and this is a lost opportunity for Cons. Now they've got 2 members back up. Now you've lost that easy knock that you found just seconds ago. In this indecisiveness now, with smokes only just coming out, as it's going to cost Cons so much play in this final couple zone.
Absolutely, and that was just the perfect opportunity for Cons to just come down out of that area, get into the next zone, and now it was missed, and Pencons is being watched by Marzi and by Klaus. Eyes are on him.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh!
On the edge, it tickles him to death, and that will be game over in 2nd place, and Team Clown taking the first chicken dinner.
Wow, so we there see Team Clown in 1st place with 5 kills, 2 for Klaus, 3 for Marzi, with Pen in 2nd with 2 kills by Cons. We have Incognito in 3rd with 5 kills, 2 for Bodija. We have Guard with none, unfortunately, Osmeskis with 1, and Vidma with 2.
Yeah, and what an excellent first game that couple final zones there was. It was a shame that those teams weren't able to be proactive as much as making those quick decisions into the final couple of zones. And I think that's where Team Clan really had the advantage moving in towards the end of this first game. They were that team on the edge. They were decisive and were brave enough to make that rotation to that final compound. And they, from there, were just able to pick off the rest of his teams crossing the road in the open who had no cover.
100%, and I just can't stop thinking about the opportunity that Pencons could have had. If they'd just moved down from that mountain when they got that knock, the end of play could have been so different.
Yeah, they lost the opportunity. They could have perhaps made some way in. It was a fairly open, fairly big building for Cons to make it into. And they lost the opportunity also for Team Clan to lose vision on him. Because he stayed in the same position, because he then started throwing smokes at me, knew exactly where he was, and that he still had to make it down from his old position. So they knew that all they had to do was throw those grenades out, finish them off, and secure that chicken dinner for his first match.
100%, and I honestly don't know what game 2 is going to have in store for us. We didn't expect to see the surprises we did in game 1. So I am really excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
So all I will say is this. Stay tuned. We are just going to have a quick break and we will be back in just a moment for game number 2. This is Penetrate Clan Wars. You are listening to Ab Summer and Highland Wolf. And we will be right back.